It is said that the richest men are often the poorest in what matters. Justin Sterling had it all: the penthouse in Boston, the CEO title, and the approval of his terrifying mother. When he looked at his wife, Sarah, all he saw was an anchor dragging him down. So on a freezing Tuesday in November, he threw her out like yesterday's trash. He thought he was cutting loose a liability. He had no idea that Sarah was carrying a secret that would eventually bring the entire Sterling empire to its knees. He didn't know about the triplets, and he certainly didn't know that 5 years later, a lawyer named Arthur Pendleton would walk into a boardroom and say 7 words that would destroy Justin's life forever. The silence in the Sterling manor wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. It was the kind of silence that usually preceded a natural disaster. Sarah stood in the center of the foyer, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the hem of her oversized cardigan. She felt a wave of nausea roll over her, something she had been feeling for weeks, but had attributed to the stress of living in this house. The marble floors were cold beneath her feet, a stark contrast to the small, warm apartment she and Justin had shared when they first met, back before his father died, and the Sterling inheritance changed everything. "Justin, please," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "Just look at me." Justin Sterling, a man who once looked at Sarah as if she hung the moon, now refused to meet her eyes. He was busy fastening his gold cufflinks, staring into the hallway mirror. His reflection showed a handsome man, sharp-jawed and blue-eyed, but his expression was vacant, hardened. "It's done, Sarah," Justin said, his tone flat. "The papers are on the table. The driver is waiting outside to take you to your sister's. You have an hour to pack your personal effects." "Personal effects?" Sarah choked out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. "Is that what I am to you now? An inventor?" "We've been married for 3 years. You promised me. I promised to do what is best for this family," Justin interrupted, finally turning around. The coldness in his eyes took Sarah's breath away. "And my mother is right. You don't fit, Sarah. You try, but you're a waitress from South Boston. You're drowning in this life, and frankly, you're pulling me down with you." Sarah felt the room spin. It was Beatrice. It was always Beatrice. Beatrice Sterling. Justin's mother descended the grand staircase at that exact moment. She was wearing a silk robe that cost more than Sarah's childhood home. She stopped 3 steps from the bottom, looking at Sarah not with hatred, but with the indifference one might show a cockroach. "Don't make this difficult, dear," Beatrice said, sipping her morning tea. "Justin has a merger to prepare for. He needs a partner who understands the intricacies of our world. Someone like Isabella, the daughter of the oil tycoon next door. The woman Beatrice had always wanted Justin to marry." "I love him," Sarah said, her voice gaining a sudden fierce strength. "And he loves me. Justin, tell her." Justin looked at his mother, then at the floor. He didn't look at Sarah. "The settlement is generous, Sarah. You'll never have to work again. Just sign the papers and go." The nausea spiked again. Sarah grabbed the back of a velvet armchair to steady herself. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell him that she'd been feeling strange lately, that her period was late, that maybe, just maybe, the family he claimed to want so badly was already beginning. But looking at his back, turned away from her, shielding himself with his mother's cruelty, she realized something painful. He didn't deserve to know. Not today. "I don't want your money," Sarah said quietly. She walked to the table where the divorce papers lay, the thick document mocking her. She didn't sign them. She just pushed them aside. "I'll leave. But remember this moment, Justin. Remember that you chose a merger over a marriage." She went upstairs, packing a single suitcase. She took only the clothes she bought with her own money, her old sketchbook and a locket her grandmother gave her. She left the diamond earrings, the designer bags Beatrice had forced on her, and the wedding ring. As she walked out the heavy oak front doors into the biting November rain, neither Justin nor Beatrice watched her go. The heavy thud of the door closing behind her sounded like a gavel sealing a death sentence. She didn't get into the town car Justin had hired. Instead, she walked to the bus stop a mile down the road, shivering in the freezing rain, clutching her stomach. "It's just you and me now," she whispered to herself, unaware of how wrong she was. 2 weeks later, Sarah was living on a futon in her friend Jenna's studio apartment in a gritty part of Dorchester. The sterling fortune felt like a fever dream. Her reality now was the smell of damp drywall and the sound of sirens wailing past the window at 3:00 a.m. She had been vomiting every morning for 10 days straight. "You have to take the test, Sar," Jenna said one evening, tossing a pharmacy bag onto the futon. Jenna was a tough-love nurse who didn't have time for denial. "You're pale, you're sick, and you're eating pickles dipped in peanut butter. It's not the flu." Sarah stared at the box. "If I'm pregnant, Jenna, I have nothing. No job, no home. I walked away from the settlement. Just take the test." 5 minutes later, Sarah sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at 2 pink lines. They were dark, undeniable lines. She buried her face in her hands and wept. Not tears of joy, but tears of terrifying, paralyzing fear. She was carrying the heir to the sterling fortune, and the father wanted nothing to do with her. She decided she had to tell him. It was the moral thing to do. She called Justin's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. She called the house landline. "Sterling residence," the housekeeper, Mrs. Higgins, answered. "Mrs. Higgins, it's Sarah. Please, I need to speak to Justin. It's an emergency." There was a pause, and then a click. The line went dead. Sarah tried again the next day. This time, a cold, unfamiliar female voice answered. Probably a personal assistant. "Mr. Sterling is currently in Milan for the quarter. He has instructed that all communication go through his legal team." "Tell him I'm pregnant," Sarah blurted out, desperate. "Mr. Sterling has been advised that you might use various tactics to reopen negotiation on the settlement." The voice droned, sounding bored. "Please contact the firm of Dewey and Howe if you wish to sign the papers." They didn't believe her. They thought she was a gold digger trying to claw her way back in. A week later, Sarah fainted at the diner, where she had just picked up a waitressing shift. She woke up in the emergency room of Boston Medical Center. The lights were blindingly bright. Miss Jenkins, a doctor with kind eyes and graying hair, stood over her. "Dr. Evans, how are you feeling?" "Tired," Sarah rasped. "Is the baby okay?" Dr. Evans exchanged a look with the nurse. He pulled the ultrasound machine closer. "Sarah, we did a scan while you were out to check for any internal bleeding. We found the source of your extreme fatigue and fainting." He turned the monitor toward her. The screen was awash of black and grey static. "See here," Dr. Evans pointed. "That's a heartbeat." Sarah exhaled. "Thank God." "And here," Dr. Evans moved the wand slightly. "That is a second heartbeat." Sarah's eyes went wide. "Twins." "And," Dr. Evans moved the wand one more time, smiling gently. "Here is a third. You're having triplets, Sarah." The room went silent. The only sound was the rhythmic whoosh, whoosh, whoosh coming from the machine. It sounded like a galloping army. "Triplets," 3 babies. 3 mouths to feed. 3 sterlings. This makes the pregnancy high risk, Dr. Evans explained gently. You're going to need bed rest eventually. You need to reduce stress. Is the father in the picture? Sarah looked at the 3 tiny flickers of light on the screen. They were fighting for life inside her, despite the stress, despite the rejection, despite the poverty. They were survivors, just like her. No, Sarah said, her voice hardening into steel. The father is dead. Technically it was a lie, but the man she had loved, the Justin who used to bring her wildflowers and read poetry, that man was dead. He had been killed by ambition and his mother's poison. I'm going to do this, Sarah whispered. I'm going to keep them safe from him. The next 6 months were the hardest of Sarah's life. She moved out of Jenna's place to a subsidized housing unit in western Massachusetts, far away from the Boston social circles where the Sterlings reigned supreme. She wanted to vanish. She worked remote customer service jobs from her laptop until her belly grew so large she could barely sit up. Jenna visited on weekends, bringing prenatal vitamins and second-hand baby clothes. Meanwhile, in the high-rise glass towers of Boston, Justin Sterling was miserable. On the surface, he was the golden boy. He had finalized the merger with the Isabella's father's oil company. He was seen at galas, his arm around Isabella, who was beautiful, polished, and utterly vacant. Beatrice was ecstatic. She finally had the perfect picture for the society pages. But Justin couldn't sleep. One night, sitting in his study with a glass of scotch, he looked at his phone. He had blocked Sarah's number on his mother's insistence, but he found himself unblocking it, his thumb hovering over the call button. Don't be weak, Justin. Beatrice's voice came from the doorway. She was like a ghost, always haunting him. Justin jumped, putting the phone down. I was just checking emails. Isabella is waiting for you at the opera, Beatrice said, adjusting the lapel of his tuxedo. Stop thinking about the girl. She took the payoff, Justin. My sources tell me she moved out of the city. She's probably spent the money on a new boyfriend by now. She didn't sign the papers, Mother, Justin reminded her. She never took a dime. Beatrice waved her hand dismissively. Pride. It fades when the rent is due. She's gone. You have a dynasty to build. A dynasty. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. 3 months later, on a humid night in July, Sarah went into labor. It was too early, 32 weeks. The delivery room was chaotic. Doctors shouting, machines beeping. Sarah was terrified. She was alone, gripping the metal railing of the bed until her knuckles turned white. Push, Sarah. Push. First came Liam. He was tiny, screaming with lungs that defied his size. Then came Noah. 2 minutes later, silent at first until a swat on the back made him wail. Finally, 4 minutes later came Mia, the smallest, the fighter. They were whisked away to the NICU immediately. Sarah lay back, exhausted, sweat matting her hair to her forehead. She felt a profound, aching loneliness. Justin should have been here. He should have been holding her hand. He should have seen his sons and daughter. But as she recovered in the maternity ward, looking at the other husbands bringing flowers and balloons to their wives, she made a vow. She would never let the Sterlings touch these children. Beatrice would look at them and see heirs. She would see assets to be managed. She would crush their spirits just like she crushed Justin's. Sarah looked at the birth certificate forms. Father's name unknown. She signed it. Years passed. The struggle was immense. Sarah worked 2 jobs, She taught art classes at the community center and worked nights managing a small bakery. They didn't have much. The triplets wore thrift store clothes and shared a single bedroom. But they had love. Their home was loud, messy, and filled with laughter. Liam was the protector, Noah was the thinker, and Mia was the firecracker. Sarah never spoke of their father. When they asked, she simply said, "He was a man who got lost." Meanwhile, the Sterling Empire was beginning to crack. 5 years after the breakup, the Great Recession hit. The merger Justin had sacrificed his marriage for turned toxic. The oil company had hidden massive debts. The Sterling stocks plummeted. Justin was working 18-hour days, aging rapidly. His hair was graying at the temples. His relationship with Isabella had ended. She left him for a French count the moment the stock price dipped. Beatrice was bedridden, her health failing, but her tongue as sharp as ever. "Fix this, Justin." "You are a Sterling," she would screech from her room. But the biggest blow was yet to come. Justin's grandfather, the founder of the dynasty. Old man Sterling passed away at the age of 99. He had been a recluse for the last decade, living in a chalet in Switzerland, estranged from Beatrice, whom he hated and rarely speaking to Justin. But he controlled the core of the family trust. The billions that kept the company afloat. Everyone assumed the money would go to Justin. The funeral was a somber, rain-soaked affair. Afterward, the family and the board of directors gathered in the mahogany-paneled library for the reading of the will. Justin sat at the head of the table. Beatrice was wheeled in, looking frail but greedy. Then the door opened. In walked Mr. Arthur Pendleton. He was not the family's usual lawyer. He was an outsider. He was old, with thick spectacles and a suit that looked like it was from the 1950s. He carried a battered leather briefcase. He sat down, opened the case, and pulled out a single yellowed envelope. He looked over his glasses at the room. He looked at Beatrice, then he looked at Justin. "Gentlemen, madam," Mr. Pendleton began, his voice raspy but clear. "The late Mr. Sterling made a change to his will 6 years ago, a change that was triggered by a specific event." "Get on with it," Beatrice snapped. "Give Justin the control so we can save the company." Pendleton smiled. It was a shark's smile. "Mr. Justin Sterling receives nothing," Pendleton said calmly. The room erupted. "What?" Justin stood up. "That's impossible." "Sit down, young man," Pendleton barked. "I'm not finished." He looked at the document. The entire estate, valued at approximately $4.2 billion, is left in a trust. This trust is to be accessed only by the legitimate great-grandchildren of the deceased. Beatrice laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound. "There are no great-grandchildren. Justin has no children. The old fool was senile. The money is locked away forever." Pendleton waited for the laughter to die down. He reached into his briefcase again. He pulled out a dossier. "Actually," Pendleton said, his eyes locking onto Justin's, "that is where you are mistaken. My investigators have been quite busy." He slid 3 photographs across the long table. Justin looked down. He saw a photo of a boy with messy hair and Justin's own blue eyes. A second boy, who looked like a carbon copy of his grandfather, and a little girl with a gap-toothed smile that looked exactly like Sarah. "Meet Liam, Noah, and Mia," Pendleton said. "Your children, Mr. Sterling, the triplets you abandoned." The boardroom of Sterling Enterprises had seen hostile takeovers, bankruptcies, and corporate wars. But it had never seen silence like this. It was a vacuum sucking the air out of the lungs of everyone present. Justin picked up the photograph of the little girl. Mia. She had Sarah's nose, that small button nose he used to kiss, and his own chin. She was wearing a cheap plastic tiara and a t-shirt that was slightly too big for her. "This is a joke," Beatrice hissed, gripping the arms of her wheelchair. Her knuckles were white, her veins protruding like blue snakes. "A fabrication. Sarah Jenkins is a liar. She probably adopted some strays to get a payout." "Careful, madam." Arthur Pendleton warned, his voice low and dangerous. "You are speaking of the heirs to the Sterling estate, and for your information, DNA tests were conducted surreptitiously 3 months ago. A simple discarded juice box from a school lunch. The match is 99%. Justin felt the room tilting. "You've been watching them." "Your grandfather was watching them," Pendleton corrected. "He had eyes everywhere. He knew you threw her out. He knew she was pregnant. And he watched her raise 3 children on a waitress's salary without asking you for a penny. He admired her grit. He despised your weakness." Pendleton leaned forward. "Here is the situation. The company is bleeding cash. You have months, maybe weeks, before bankruptcy. The only capital available is in the trust, and the trust pays out for the care and upbringing of the heirs. If you want to save this company, you need the mother's cooperation. She controls the children. She controls the money." Beatrice's eyes snapped open, calculating. The shock vanished, replaced instantly by predatory greed. "Well," she said, smoothing her silk skirt, "that changes things. We simply take custody. If she is poor, she is unfit. We hire the best lawyers, we paint her as negligent, and we take the children. Then we control the trust." Justin looked at his mother with a sudden, fresh wave of revulsion. For 5 years he had let this woman dictate his life. He had let her poison his marriage. And now, hearing he had 3 children he had never met, her first instinct wasn't to ask their names. It was to steal them. "No," Justin said. The word felt foreign in his mouth. "Excuse me," Beatrice snapped. "I said no. We are not suing her. We are not taking them." Justin stood up, clutching the photos. "I'm going to go see her. I'm going to beg for forgiveness." "Forgiveness won't pay the shareholders, you fool," Beatrice screamed, losing her composure entirely. "She hates you. She will let this company burn just to spite you. You have to destroy her to save us." "I've destroyed enough," Justin muttered. He looked at Pendleton. "Where are they?" Pendleton scribbled an address on a piece of paper. "She lives in a town called Oakhaven. It's about 2 hours west." "But Mr. Sterling—" "Yes. She is not the same woman you threw out into the rain. Do not expect a warm welcome." Justin didn't wait. He ran out of the boardroom, ignoring his mother's shrieks. He took the elevator down 40 floors, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He got into his Aston Martin, the engine roaring to life. As he sped out of the garage and onto the highway, rain began to lash against the windshield. It was raining the night he dumped her. It seemed fitting it was raining now. He drove fast, blurring the lines of the highway. His mind replayed the last 5 years, every lonely dinner, every empty victory. He had convinced himself he was doing the right thing, protecting the family legacy. But the legacy was a lie. The only real thing he had ever had was Sarah, and he had thrown her away. Triplets. He had 2 sons and a daughter. They were 5 years old. They walked, talked, laughed, and cried, and he had missed every single second of it. By the time he reached Oakhaven, the sun had set. It was a small, tired, working-class town. The factories were closed, the storefronts faded. He pulled up to the address Pendleton had given him. It wasn't a house. It was a run-down apartment complex with peeling beige paint and a chain-link fence. A tricycle lay overturned in the grass. Justin stared at the building. This is where the heirs to a $4 billion fortune lived. He stepped out of the car. His Italian leather shoes splashed into a muddy puddle. He didn't care. He walked up the cracked concrete steps to apartment 2B. He could hear noise inside a TV, blaring cartoons, a child shouting the smell of burnt toast. He raised his hand to knock. His hand shook. He, the CEO who terrified thousands of employees, was terrified of what lay behind this cheap wooden door. He knocked 3 times. The noise inside stopped. Footsteps approached. The deadbolt slid back. The door opened. Sarah stood there. She looked different, older, tired. She wore a stained apron over jeans, her hair in a messy bun. There were fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But she was still beautiful. Her eyes widened when she saw him. The color drained from her face, leaving her ghost white. She gripped the doorframe. "Justin," she whispered. Before he could speak, a small boy with messy brown hair. Liam ran up behind her, holding a toy sword. He looked at Justin, then at his mother. "Mommy," the boy asked, his voice full of innocent curiosity. "Who is the man?" Justin felt his knees give out. He looked at the boy, his son, and felt a physical pain in his chest so sharp he thought he was dying. "Sarah," Justin choked out. "I didn't know." Sarah's shock instantly hardened into a mask of pure fury. She stepped back and tried to slam the door. "Go away," she screamed. Justin jammed his foot in the door. "Sarah, please, Pendleton told me the Triplets I had to come." "You have no right," she yelled, struggling to push the door shut against his weight. "You've been dead to us for 5 years." "Leave." "Who is he, Mummy?" Another voice. Noah appeared holding a book. Then Mia peeking out from behind Sarah's legs. 3 pairs of blue eyes. His eyes. Staring at him with confusion and fear. Sarah stopped pushing. She looked at her children, then at Justin. She saw the desperation in his face. She saw the expensive suit soaked in rain. She took a deep breath, her chest heaving. "Kids, go to your room. Put on your headphones. Now!" "But Mom," Liam started. "Now!" Sarah commanded. The 3 children scrambled away, shutting the bedroom door. Sarah turned back to Justin. She opened the door fully, not to invite him in, but to confront him. She stood tall, radiating a power he had never seen in her before. "You have 5 minutes," she hissed. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't call the police." The apartment was small, painfully small. Justin stood in the center of the living room, feeling like a giant intruder. There was a worn-out rug, a couch covered in a patchwork quilt to hide tears in the fabric, and a small dining table cluttered with bills and crayons. It smelled of cinnamon and cheap laundry detergent. It smelled like a home, but a struggling one. "Well," Sarah crossed her arms. She didn't offer him a seat. "Talk." "I didn't know you were pregnant," Justin said, his voice raw. "If I had known, if you had known what?" Sarah cut him off, her voice dripping with venom. "You would have let me stay. You would have hidden me away in the guest house while you married Isabella. Or would Beatrice have sent me to a clinic to fix the problem?" Justin flinched. "I would have taken care of you." I didn't need your care, Sarah shouted, tears springing to her eyes. I needed my husband. I needed the man who promised to love me. But you threw me out like garbage because I wasn't society enough. You chose money, Justin. You chose your mother. I was a coward, Justin admitted, the tears finally spilling over his own cheeks. I was weak. I let her control me. But Sarah, look at this place. You're struggling. I can see it. I can help. I want to help. Sarah laughed, a dry, humorless sound. We don't need your guilt money. We are happy. My children are loved. They don't know they're poor because they have everything that matters. Can you say the same, Justin? Look at you. You look miserable. I am, he whispered. I've been miserable every day since you left. Good. The bedroom door creaked open a fraction. Mia peeked out. She was brave, this one. She tiptoed into the room holding a drawing. Mia, go back inside. Sarah said, her voice softening instantly. I made this for the sad man, Mia said. She walked up to Justin and held out a piece of paper. Justin slowly crouched down, expensive suit fabric straining. He took the paper. It was a drawing of a stick-figure family. A mum, 3 kids, and a cat. There was no dad. Thank you, Mia, Justin said, his voice breaking. He looked at her face. It was like looking in a mirror that showed him the best parts of himself, untainted by the world. I'm Justin. Are you our daddy? Mia asked. The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Sarah lunged forward, grabbing Mia and pulling her back. Mia, go to your room. I mean it. Mia scrambled away, frightened by her mother's tone. Sarah turned on Justin, her eyes blazing. Get out, now! You don't get to play daddy because you're having a midlife crisis. You gave up that right. Sarah, listen to me, Justin pleaded, standing up. It's not just about me. It's the inheritance. My grandfather. He left everything to them. Sarah froze. What? The Sterling Trust. $4 billion. It's theirs. But it's locked until they're adults unless we work together. The company is failing, Sarah. If I don't get access to the trust to stabilize the business, the inheritance will be worthless by the time they grow up. The sharks are circling. Sarah stared at him. She processed the number. $4 billion. So that's it, she said quietly. The anger drained away, replaced by a look of profound disappointment. You didn't come here because you missed me. You didn't come here to see your children. You came here because you need their piggy bank to save your company. No. That's not— Get out! Sarah screamed, pointing at the door. Get out before I kill you. You want to use my babies to fix your mistakes. I would rather starve than let you and that witch Beatrice touch them. Go! She shoved him. Justin stumbled back. He saw the hatred in her eyes, hatred born of a broken heart. He realized he couldn't fix this with words. I'll go, he said, holding up his hands. But Sarah Beatrice knows. She knows where you are. She knows about the money. She won't stop. You need to be careful. I can handle your mother, Sarah spat. Get out! Justin walked out into the rain. The door slammed behind him, and the deadbolt slid home. He sat in his car for an hour, watching the window of apartment 2B. He watched the lights go out in the kids' room. He watched the silhouette of Sarah sitting by the window, her head in her hands. He realized then that he was in love with her. He had never stopped. And he realized that warning her about Beatrice wasn't enough, because back in Boston, Beatrice Sterling was already on the phone. Yes, Beatrice said into the receiver, sipping a glass of wine. "The mother is unstable, living in squalor. I have reason to believe the children are being neglected. I need a rush on the filing. Emergency custody. Yes, Judge. Tomorrow morning." The attack didn't come with guns. It came with clipboards. 2 days after Justin's visit, Sarah was at the bakery kneading dough. She was distracted, her mind racing. Justin's face, the sorrow in it, haunted her. But the mention of the money terrified her more. $4 billion was a target on their backs. "Sarah, you have customers," her boss called out. Sarah wiped her floury hands and walked to the front. 2 people stood there, a woman in a stiff grey suit and a man with a tablet. They didn't look like customers. They looked like trouble. "Sarah Jenkins?" the woman asked. "Yes." "I'm Brenda Miller from Child Protective Services. This is my colleague. We've received a report regarding the welfare of Liam Noah and Mia Jenkins." The floor dropped out from under Sarah. "What? That's ridiculous. My children are fine." The report cites hazardous living conditions, malnutrition, and leaving minors unsupervised, the woman droned. "We have a court order to inspect your home and interview the children immediately." "You can't do that." "They're at school." "Then we will go to the school," the woman said coldly. "No," Sarah ripped off her apron. "I'm coming with you." The next 3 hours were a nightmare. Sarah watched helplessly as these strangers picked through her tiny apartment. They opened her empty fridge. She hadn't gone grocery shopping yet. They noted the peeling paint, landlord's fault. They saw the second-hand clothes. "It's a bit cramped for 3 children," Brenda noted, writing on her clipboard. "We are poor, not negligent," Sarah cried. "They are fed, loved, and clean. Poverty isn't a crime, Ms. Jenkins," the woman said, her tone suggesting she believed otherwise. "But we have concerns about your ability to provide stability, and with the high-profile nature of the potential father." Sarah froze. "You know who the father is?" "The report was filed by a concerned relative," Brenda said. "Beatrice." Sarah felt sick. Beatrice wasn't just coming for the money. She was trying to take the kids to leverage the money. She would put them in boarding schools, turn them into little robots, and erase Sarah from their lives. "When is the hearing?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "Emergency hearing is set for Friday, 9:00 a.m. Family court." Sarah sank onto her couch as the agents left. Friday was in 2 days. She had $400 in her bank account. Beatrice Sterling had lawyers who charged them thousands an hour. She was going to lose them. She paced the floor, panic rising in her throat like bile. She couldn't call Justin. He was the enemy. He was part of the machine that was trying to crush her. Or was he? She remembered his face in the rain. "I'm miserable without you." He had looked broken. But she couldn't trust him. She had to fight this herself. On Friday morning, Sarah stood in the courtroom. She wore her only nice dress, a black one, from before the triplets were born. It was tight. She felt small. On the other side of the aisle sat Beatrice Sterling. She looked like a queen in her wheelchair, surrounded by 3 lawyers in shark skin suits. Justin was there too. He sat behind his mother, looking down at his hands. He didn't look at Sarah. Sarah felt a stab of betrayal. He knew. He's part of it. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Halloway, a stern man with thick glasses, took the bench. "We are here regarding the emergency custody petition for the Jenkins children," the judge said. "Mr. Thorne, you represent the petitioner, Mrs. Beatrice Sterling." "Yes, Your Honor." The lead lawyer stood up, smooth, confident. We are here to save these children from squalor. Mrs. Sterling is their grandmother. She has immense resources. The mother, frankly, is destitute. The home inspection report shows a lack of food, inadequate space, and structural hazards. We are asking for immediate temporary custody to be granted to the Sterling family. Miss Jenkins, the judge looked at Sarah. Do you have counsel? No, Your Honor. Sarah said, her voice shaking. I can't afford one. But I am a good mother. You can't take them just because I'm not rich. The law considers the best interest of the child, the judge said, looking at the CPS report. This report is concerning Miss Jenkins. Empty refrigerator. Mold in the bathroom. These are not ideal conditions. I was going grocery shopping that night, Sarah pleaded. Please, Beatrice smirked. She leaned over to her lawyer. It's done. We'll have them by lunch. The judge sighed. He looked ready to bang the gavel. Given the evidence presented, Your Honor, a voice boomed from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. Justin Sterling stood up. Sit down, Justin, Beatrice hissed. What are you doing? Justin ignored her. He walked past the bar into the center of the courtroom. He looked at Sarah. He saw the terror in her eyes. He saw the woman who had carried his children, fed them, protected them, and loved them when he was too weak to be a man. He looked at Beatrice, the woman who had manipulated him his whole life. I wish to address the court, Justin said. You are not a party to this petition, Mr. Sterling, the judge said. I am the father, Justin stated firmly. A gasp went through the gallery. And I have evidence that this petition is fraudulent. Beatrice's face went purple. Justin. Sit down, or I will disown you. Justin turned to his mother. You already did, Mother. The moment you tried to steal my children. He turned back to the judge. He pulled a folded document from his pocket. My mother and her team bribed the CPS caseworker, Brenda Miller. I have the bank transfer records here. I hired a private investigator yesterday. He walked up and placed the papers on the judge's bench. The report is a lie, Justin said, his voice ringing with authority. Sarah Jenkins is an exemplary mother. The only danger to those children is the woman sitting in that wheelchair. The courtroom erupted. Beatrice shrieked, He's lying! He's insane! Sarah stared at Justin, her hand covering her mouth. He had saved her. He had betrayed his mother, his company, his entire world. For her. The judge reviewed the papers. His face grew dark. He looked at Beatrice's lawyers, who were suddenly very busy shuffling papers and looking at the floor. Mr. Thorne, the judge said, his voice ice cold. I suggest you and your client remain very quiet unless you want to be held in contempt. This hearing is dismissed. The children remain with the mother, and I am referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation into fraud and bribery. Beatrice let out a wail of pure rage as the gavel banged. Sarah stood frozen. Justin turned to her. He didn't smile. He looked exhausted. You can go, Sarah, he said softly. They're safe. Why? She whispered. Why did you do it? You just lost the company. Without custody, you can't access the trust. Justin looked at her with intense sadness. I don't care about the company, Sarah. I lost my soul 5 years ago. I'm just trying to buy it back. He turned and walked out of the courtroom alone, leaving Sarah staring after him, her heart beating a rhythm she hadn't felt in a long, long time. But the story wasn't over. The Sterling Empire was crumbling, and Arthur Pendleton had one more card to play, a card that would force Sarah and Justin to live under the same roof. The heavy oak doors of the courthouse swung shut behind Sarah, muffling the chaotic noise of the lobby. Outside, the air was crisp and smelled of rain on pavement. The storm had passed, leaving behind a grey, washed-out sky that matched the exhaustion in Sarah's bones. She looked down the concrete steps. Justin was already halfway to the parking lot. He wasn't walking with his usual confident, predatory stride. His shoulders were slumped, his head bowed. He looked like a man who had just dismantled his own life piece by piece. He had walked into that courtroom a CEO and walked out a pariah. He had humiliated his mother, admitted to a family conspiracy, and effectively torpedoed his own company, all to ensure Sarah kept her children. "Justin!" Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the damp air. He stopped. He hesitated for a moment, as if bracing himself for another blow, before slowly turning around. When he looked at her, Sarah felt her breath hitch. The arrogance was gone. The mask was off. All that remained was a raw, naked vulnerability she hadn't seen since they were 22 years old, sitting on a park bench sharing a sandwich. Sarah walked down the steps, her heels clicking on the stone. She stopped 3 feet away from him. "You saved us," she said, searching his face. "You had the judge in your pocket. You had the high-priced lawyers. You could have crushed me. Why did you burn it all down instead?" Justin let out a long, shaky breath, running a hand through his hair. "Because I looked at Liam. I saw myself in him. And I remembered what it felt like to be raised in a house where love was conditional, where you were only as good as your last report card, or your social standing. I couldn't let them grow up in that coldness, Sarah. I couldn't let Beatrice do to them what she did to me." He looked at her, his blue eyes glistening. "I'm sorry. I know that word is cheap. It doesn't pay for the 5 years you struggled. It doesn't fix the nights you cried yourself to sleep. But it's the only thing I have left to offer you." "What happens to the company?" Sarah asked. "You said in there that the bankruptcy is inevitable without the trust." "It is," Justin nodded grimly. "The stock will tank by morning. 5,000 people will likely lose their jobs. The Sterling legacy ends with a whimper. But at least I can sleep tonight, knowing my children are safe with their mother." Sarah felt a pang of guilt. Not for herself, but for the innocent workers. The janitors, the secretaries, the factory line workers who had nothing to do with Beatrice's schemes. Before she could respond, the sleek black town car that had been idling at the curb rolled forward. The rear window buzzed down. Arthur Pendleton peered out, looking like a tortoise peering from its shell. "Get in," the old lawyer croaked. "Both of you, we are not finished." "Mr. Pendleton," Justin sighed. "It's over. I've forfeited my claim." "You have forfeited your patience, perhaps, but not your destiny," Pendleton snapped. "Get in the car, unless you want to discuss the fate of $4 billion on a public sidewalk." 20 minutes later, they sat in the leather-bound silence of Pendleton's private office. The room smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco. Pendleton sat behind his massive mahogany desk, steepling his fingers as he looked from Justin to Sarah. "You two have made a spectacular mess," Pendleton began, though a faint glimmer of amusement danced in his eyes. "Beatrice is currently being sedated by her private physician. The board of directors is in a state of apoplectic shock. However, Justin, you showed something today that your grandfather feared you had lost." "Stupidity," Justin offered dryly. "Character," Pendleton corrected. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick yellowed envelope sealed with red wax. "Your grandfather, Old Man Sterling, was a paranoid genius. He knew his son was weak. He knew his wife, your mother, was a viper. And he worried that you, Justin, would be corrupted by the wealth. Pendleton cracked the wax seal. So he added a secret clause to the trust, a codicil of unity. He instructed me to reveal it only if the family was on the brink of total collapse. He slid the document across the desk. The trust fund's all $4 billion can be unlocked immediately. The company can be saved. The employees' pensions can be secured. The bankruptcy can be averted. What's the catch? Sarah asked her guard, instantly up. There's always a catch. The catch, Pendleton said, locking eyes with her, is that the trust requires the direct descendants to be raised in a stable, unified environment. Specifically, the parents of the heirs must reside under the same roof for a period of no less than 365 days. The room went silent. You could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Live together. Sarah laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. With him after everything, absolutely not. Sarah, please. Justin started, but she cut him off with a glare. No, Justin. You don't get to waltz back in. We have a routine. We have a life. You are a stranger to them. I'm not asking for marriage, Pendleton interjected calmly. I am asking for cohabitation. There is a property, the Blackwood Estate in Vermont. It is neutral ground. 40 rooms. You could live there for a year and never cross paths if you chose. But legally the address must be the same. Pendleton leaned forward. Sarah, look at me. If you walk away, Justin is ruined, yes. But so are 5,000 families who depend on Sterling Enterprises for their livelihood. You have the power to save them. All you have to do is tolerate this man's presence for 1 year. Sarah looked at Justin. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't trying to charm her. He was just waiting, accepting whatever judgment she passed. She thought about the single mothers working in the Sterling factories. She thought about the schools funded by the company's taxes. She looked at the photo of her triplets she kept in her locket. Fine, Sarah said, her voice hard as flint. I'll do it, for the employees, and for my children's inheritance, but we have ground rules. She turned to Justin, pointing a finger at his chest. Rule 1, you sleep in the guest wing. Rule 2, you do not undermine my parenting. Rule 3, if I smell even a whiff of your mother's influence, if you try to turn them into little snobs, we leave. The money burns. Do you understand? Justin nodded solemnly. I understand. Thank you, Sarah. The move to the Blackwood Estate was like stepping into a different century. The house was a sprawling Victorian mansion, nestled in the deep woods of Vermont, miles away from the nearest paparazzi. It was beautiful but cold. Dust sheets covered the furniture, and the hallways echoed with emptiness. For the first week, the silence was deafening. Sarah and the triplets occupied the east wing. Justin took the west. They passed each other in the kitchen like ghosts, exchanging polite nods, and nothing more. But a house with 3 5-year-olds cannot remain quiet for long. The thaw began on a Tuesday morning. Sarah walked into the kitchen to find the room filled with grey smoke. The fire alarm was blaring. She rushed in, expecting a disaster, only to find the great Justin Sterling standing in his silk pajamas, frantically waving a dish towel at the toaster. I think the settings are calibrated differently than I'm used to. Justin coughed, looking at the charred black discs that used to be bread. Liam and Noah were sitting at the island, giggling. Daddy killed the toast, Noah cheered. Sarah stood in the doorway. She should have been annoyed. Instead, a laugh bubbled up from her chest, a genuine, unforced laugh. It's a toaster, Justin, not a merger, she said, walking over and popping the window open. You have to turn the dial down. Justin looked at her soot on his cheek. He smiled a crooked, boyish grin. Right, dial down. Got it. From that day on, the walls began to come down. Justin stopped hiding in his study. He started leaving his laptop closed. He traded his Italian loafers for hiking boots. He was clumsy at first. He put diapers on the wrong way for the dolls Mia played with. He didn't know the names of the characters in their cartoons. But he showed up. He spent hours building an intricate Lego fortress, with Noah listening intently as the boy explained the structural integrity of the plastic bricks. He let Mia paint his fingernails a bright neon pink, and he wore the polish to a Zoom board meeting the next day, without shame. He taught Liam how to throw a baseball, cheering wildly when the boy finally caught a pop fly. Sarah watched from the periphery. She sketched them from the porch while they played in the leaves. She saw the way the children looked at him, not as a bank account, but as a hero. And she saw the way he looked at them with a sense of wonder, as if he couldn't believe he had helped create something so perfect. 6 months into the arrangement, a heavy blizzard hit Vermont. The power flickered and died, plunging the massive estate into darkness. Sarah found Justin in the living room, building a massive fire in the stone hearth. He had gathered blankets and pillows, creating a camp on the floor for the triplets who were thrilled by the adventure. Once the children were asleep, their breathing soft and rhythmic in the firelight, Justin poured 2 mugs of hot cocoa. He handed one to Sarah and sat on the floor opposite her, leaning against the sofa. The only light came from the dancing flames. "You're good at this," Sarah said softly, breaking the silence. "Better than I thought you'd be." Justin looked down at his mug. "I missed so much, Sarah. I look at them, and I see 5 years of birthdays, holidays, and first steps that I can never get back. It kills me." "You can't change the past," Sarah said, taking a sip of the cocoa. "But you're here now." "I was so afraid," Justin confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "My whole life my mother taught me that love was a weakness. She said people would only ever want me for the sterling name. When I met you, I was terrified. Because I loved you so much, it made me feel exposed. So when she told me you were a liability, I let myself believe her. Because pushing you away felt safer than risking my heart." He looked up at her, tears shimmering in his eyes. "I love you, Sarah. I never stopped. Not for a single day. And I don't care about the year timeline. I don't care about the money. When this year is up, if you want me to leave, I will go. But I needed you to know that I am yours. I always have been." Sarah looked at him. She didn't see the CEO. She didn't see the coward who had abandoned her. She saw a man who had broken himself into pieces to fit into his mother's mold, and was now finally painfully putting himself back together. She set her mug down on the coffee table. She crawled across the blanket, fought, careful not to wake Mia. She reached out and cupped Justin's face in her hands. His stubble was rough against her palms. "You're not going anywhere, Justin," she whispered. "No." He breathed, leaning into her touch. "No," Sarah said. "We have a lot of lost time to make up for." She kissed him. It wasn't the desperate kiss of their youth, nor the polite peck of a stranger. It was a kiss of forgiveness. It tasted of cocoa wood smoke, and a future that finally, after all the pain, belonged entirely to them. The storm raged outside, burying the world in white. But inside the Blackwood estate, for the first time in a generation, the house was warm. The codicil of unity had done its job, not by forcing them together, but by giving them the quiet space to realize they had never really been apart. Justin and Sarah remarried in a small ceremony in the garden of the Vermont estate. There were no press, no paparazzi, and no oil tycoons. Just the staff, Arthur Pendleton, who actually smiled, and the triplets who served as the ring bearers and flower girl. They didn't move back to the penthouse. They stayed in the country. Justin turned Sterling Enterprises into a leader in green energy and philanthropy. He was no longer the richest man in Boston by bank account standards. He gave billions away. But he was the richest man in the world in the ways that mattered. Every night, he tucked 3 children into bed. Every morning he woke up next to the woman who had saved him from himself. He learned that the greatest twist in life wasn't finding out you were a billionaire or finding out you had triplets. The greatest twist was realizing that it's never too late to rewrite your story. It's never too late to choose love over fear. And as for the triplets, they grew up knowing that their father didn't just provide for them, he fought for them, and that was a legacy worth more than all the gold in the world. Wow, what a journey for Justin and Sarah. From the cold boardroom to a warm home filled with love. It just goes to show that money can buy a house, but it can't buy a home, and it certainly can't buy a second chance. I want to know what you think. Did Justin deserve forgiveness after what he did? Or was Sarah too forgiving? Let me know your honest opinion in the comments down below. I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow, so I can bring you more amazing stories. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a daily dose of drama and emotion. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep loving and keep living.